And there you have it.
And we are live. Oh, this is the best. You know what's weird? If you think about this, first of all, I just want to say happy Saturday to everybody because it is Saturday night and we are all together once again, which I love.
And we have Joey with us.
And we have who with us?
Joey.
Joey.
Joey Heatherton.
Oh, I don't have the Joey Heatherton.
Yes, you do.
Do I?
You have sparklers on.
Oh, okay, thank you. Right.
Oh, the microphone.
Yes.
Oh, we got to turn that on.
Sound, what a concept. I just had to turn my microphone on. I turn it off because
You
God
would not.
knows,
There's
God
a.
knows when the show starts before I
She
know
turns
it.
it off because
And
she's
what
talking
mic-
shit all before we start the show, and then she quickly shuts it down, puts on this goody act.
Is that what I do?
Is that what you do?
You know, people are going to believe that. Straighten it out. I'm giving it to straighten it out because I am not. I am putting this makeup on till the
What's
last
funny
possible
is
second.
I did know a lot of people like that though, for real.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I could remember literally being on the set, and I won't name names, but, you know, and you'd be like truck driver kind of stuff going on, and then cameras cut. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Introspective.
But that's not me.
Not at all.
No. I mean, you know, and I'm not a goody two.
No, but you do want your mic off all the time.
Well,
so.
because wait, I feel.
Also, we start.
No, let me just tell you why. Because
Wait, I'm going to get you off the hook on this whole thing.
okay.
We don't have a sound man, so therefore we are kind of responsible for
our own
muting
sound.
our own mics.
Yeah.
So you're off the hook. That's simple. Because normally in a show like this, there would be a lot more people involved, including a sound man who would be focused on muting mics and, you know, because especially if you were to go to the John or something, you know, you don't want to hear.
Oh, they hear that all the time.
That's
And
right, but
by
not
the
on
way,
the air,
Can you
preferably.
imagine what sound men hear?
I
Because-
do know because that's what I did for a little while.
Yeah, because when you're on a movie set, everyone's mic'd up, and it's up to the sound man.
Well, and there's
Like
not a lot
right
of
now,
time.
I'm in charge of turning my mic on.
But there's
and
not a lot of time sometimes on a set either. You know, you run to go to the bathroom and come back to take
off.
a
I'm
take.
not even talking about that. I'm talking about personal conversations.
No, it's
and
all of
they
the
hear
above.
everything, you
No,
know,
but
so-
it's all of the above. I
Yeah.
mean, you would be laughing your ass off.
Why?
Well, you love toilet humor. So if someone were in there like letting go with some massive gas, you would think that was very amusing.
Well, I don't know. I think I would laugh very hard at that. Yes.
You like,
But isn't it
and
interesting?
Carrie
I'm
loved.
talking about personal
And I'm talking
conversation,
toilet
And you're
humor.
talking toilet humor, exactly. But I will say this. We have a great show tonight. I'm really excited about it. It's, would you say it's a
Can we turn Kat's sound up a little bit? People are saying she's a little.
okay.
I'm a little low. All right.
I
so
never
here he
felt that
goes.
about her at all.
I have a sound man now. It's
Yeah,
the
I'll
only
just
we don't
leave
have is a sound
and be
man.
sound man.
That's
Gray
right.
skies
You know,
are
I was
gonna
thinking
clear
about
up.
this, and I might as well say it. You know, we do this talk show and have been doing it. We call it On the Fly. No script. We really don't have any idea. I mean, it's just lately that we kind of have, you know, we now know maybe a week in advance or so what we're going to do, of course. But nothing is really written out. You have to plan the videos and things like that. But I have done so many talk shows in my lifetime of every kind. And there has never been a time I wasn't heavily interviewed before I went on the show. They interview you, they tell you pretty much what, you know, they talk to you so that they know what to ask. They tell you what they're going to ask you, all of that stuff. And
Unless you're in politics, then they're not supposed to do that.
yeah, which I'm not, happily. But the truth is that I don't really know. Everything is scripted on a
Now,
talk
I don't.
show.
You're telling me when you went on talk shows, they told you what they're going to be talking about?
Well, you
They asked
were,
the question- they
you
gave you
were
the questions?
heavily interviewed. Okay, let's just take it for example, going way back. So anytime,
Way
yes,
back.
that's the producer's job is to get the
Yes, this is a
talent on the
pre-interview.
phone. It's called a pre-interview, so you know
But
what
I
they're
don't
gonna ask.
remember. I've never. In fact, we're going to be running some talk shows tonight.
Yeah, I know. And it's so
but
funny because
you're going to find though that they did not. We knew what we were going to talk about,
Of course.
generally speaking, but nobody gave us the questions. In fact, the people that you're going to see doing these interviews, you know, were pretty well known for shaking people up.
yeah.
You know, they wanted to put a zinger on you to leave you kind of going, you know.
Right. All I'm saying is they're heavily scripted. They read prompters. We don't have that. We just do it.
Oh, that.
So, yeah,
The prompter.
the prompter, and no, you may not know exactly what question, but you have been interviewed for a half an hour in a pre-interview, and you know what they know. So it's a very different, this experience of live television on YouTube, because and I love it, and I watch so many other people's shows, not talk shows, oddly enough. I mean, I do love Joe Rogan, and I love, I love to watch. What's that?
Your
My
microphone.
microphone.
It's down low.
Oh, it's not over my
Well,
ear.
that's why they couldn't hear you well. That's
Okay,
Our microphone
now
was
I'm
all the way
probably
down and-
now we're probably
It
going to
was
blow
in the
everybody right
girls.
out.
It's okay. We're looking
I'll
good.
talk lower.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
But that I wasn't looking at that. Now I notice why.
Yes. So,
But I would
but I love
say
watching other people's shows
a
on
good
YouTube.
way to know who a lot about somebody is what they do in a live environment with no prompter, no nothing. It is a good way to understand what people are thinking and saying, and so I mean there is something to be said for all of that. If you really want to know, it's a good way to know. If
I
I'm reading a
prefer
prompter all
everything
the
to be
time, you only know what
surprise.
my writers are thinking, not what I think. Or they're protecting me. We see this in politics all the time. Everything's very carefully scripted with a lot of people,
Yes.
certain people.
Okay, so we're in. I'm super excited.
We're in where?
Well, anyway, I'm just.
Wait, I want to say one thing that happened before you came out. We were doing a test
Yeah.
on the stream, and we just wanted to, because we were having some sound issues. And when we did, what was the person's name?
Madeline Moore.
Madeline Moore jumped on before we could even say howdy
hi.
doody and donated $10. And we went right off because we were just doing a sound test. So what we're going to do to reward such diligence and speed,
And she's
is
always so great.
we're going to give either my mom or my father's CD to her. So Madeline, let us know what you would want
Todd
my
can
mom,
sign it for you.
and
if
I
you'd
can
like.
sign it for you. But I just wanted to reward the speed of that. Now I don't want people doing that, obviously, hopefully, but I have to say, that was dedication to quickly jump on and be the first one.
We appreciate it so
And she
much.
also gets on the wheel and all that.
Oh
as
no,
normal.
she's
It's
great.
that.
Madeline always asks great questions too, and she's a loyal watcher, and
But I mean,
as so many
$10,
are.
is in subscription world is a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't expect people, if you're willing to, great, but we don't expect that out of anybody, and that's quite a significant, in my mind,
Yes.
you know,
Well, of course.
significant.
But you know what? I think the people that watch our show, and they understand that this is, this is a pretty high production show for just an independent little show, and it does take a lot to put it on. And so, a lot of people spend every Saturday night with us, and
I mean, they've got to be nuts.
no, I really appreciate that, because I know there's a lot of things to do other than watch, your computer. So we appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Well, you could watch
everybody.
on a phone too, so you could be somewhere. And people I've noticed by looking at the
Some
analytics.
people listen to it while they're driving home.
Well, and I've noticed people do come on and off. So you'll see sometimes people go off and come back on, and because we do go on a bit.
Yeah,
At times.
we're going to try to not make this a marathon tonight, because
I don't
it's
know
such
how.
a good show. So let's get all of our stuff out of the way.
we'll
so
get
Are you sure we
straight to
should
We
just
can
go
get
into
on
it
with
and
it.
get the stuff out of the way at the end? Make
No,
people
I think
start
we should just
entertaining
get
right
it.
away?
No, listen, Ryan, I'm turning you up, so you tell me what you think.
Well, we're going to talk about the claim sales and the website sales first.
Oh, okay.
Okay, that's
Oh, I
what. Yeah,
forgot
that's
about
what I'm
that.
talking
We have
about.
some special
So then
stuff
we can
going
just
on.
let it fly.
Okay, I forgot about
Well,
All
that.
right.
first off, we have a claim sale tomorrow at Hello America, because I know he's going to turn the camera on any moment.
Is he?
so-
You
oh,
think-
I don't
you
know.
think
I don't
he
see
is?
the little mysterious
I think if
red
you
dot.
if you talk long enough, you might get the idea.
There it is. Hi. Well, no, I was just going to say we have a claim sale tomorrow on the Debbie Reynolds Studio Store Facebook page, which is where we get one-off items together just for you folks. And that is at 12 p.m. Pacific time tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern time. And then we have some items, special items that you found today that we have up on the DebbieReynoldsStudioStore.com.
Okay,
So-
so what we did is since the show, I think you saw that a lot of you might have seen us pre-announce the fact that we are doing this on Eddie and the lost journals of Eddie Fisher. And what I found were these journals, but that made me think we should have some couple of cool Eddie Fisher items that we normally wouldn't have. And I really don't have a lot of Eddie's stuff. Certainly compared to my mother, it's like nothing. But I do have like 5 or 6 pairs of his cufflinks. And I've decided to offer up a gold, 14 karat gold pair of his cufflinks. Now we're going to put these on the studio store site. And you probably took a picture of these, didn't you?
Yes, Ryan has.
What kind of stone is that?
It's like onyx, I think, but these are 14 karat.
And the website.
So I would say that these were probably performance more than anything else. They're really cool. And there's 13, did I say, or 16 grams?
They are 13 grams.
13 grams
together.
of 14 karat gold. So the scrap value alone is probably up in the $800 range, just melt on the gold. So they're really quite, and he, you know, it's interesting, unlike Harry Carl, he didn't have a lot of jewelry like Harry. He had a little more modest watches, and like his cufflinks were not like Harry's. I only have 1 pair of expensive cufflinks from him, and they're nothing compared to what Carl had. You know, he was pretty modest on the jewelry side, interesting. Not on the suits. He had a lot of suits. The other item that we're going to do is the shoes, which
Yes.
I think are already on the store, are they not?
Correct.
Okay,
they
so
are.
these were actually shoes that he wore a lot. These are his loafers. You could see this, you know, it's got a, you know, you could see the wear. I mean, these were used a lot by him. So there's bound to be pictures of them in this. It says handmade in Italy. I don't know if you could see these labels. Handmade in Italy. So we already had those up, but that way to remind you, there is, if you want an Eddie artifact, these are well used but in good shape Eddie Fisher shoes. And then
Well,
we
I
have,
think it's more cool to own a pair of somebody's shoes that they wore, really
well,
wore
I mean,
a lot.
Look, I have shoes of my dad's, and they have there's like no scuff on the bottom, so I
Right.
wore them once.
You have the
These
same
are
size feet?
same size,
That is wild. Are you
Well-
the same height?
same height. Genetics are a bitch.
I like your height.
I have his bottom lip and his eyes and his feet.
I must say, you are the first man that I have been with ever that I didn't have to climb up on a couple of steps to look eye
It's
to
much
eye
easier.
to.
We're a good
That's
fit,
so much better.
right? We're a good fit.
It's so perfect. I mean, I really am not joking.
But also, when we're sleeping, we also fit together really
Yeah,
well.
we spoon. We have a perfect. It's like sitting in the little
Well, when you stack
drawer
spoons.
when you stack spoons. That's exactly like. So I happen to really appreciate Eddie's height on you. You know, but
Yeah,
that's so
well-
fun. I'm your mom.
Well, had she
Tiny.
you know, had an affair with Carlton the Carpenter, I'd be 6'5", and you'd be right back in the same boat.
You know, forget about Carl Carpenter. Let's talk about who she should have really been with. Oh,
But
no,
what,
no.
Bob
You
Wagner,
know, no. Oh,
No.
no.
Glenn Ford, they're all small. No.
Think. Who's my
Think.
posthumous crush?
Oh, Harv. Then I would have been
Harv
6'5".
Fresnel. That would have been my dream.
And that would
for
have
her
been
to be with
an
him.
okay person to dump Carl for, because right about that time is when she should have caught him. You know.
Well,
you
was he married when they were making The Unsinkable Molly Brown? I know she was
who?
married.
Oh, I don't know about Harv.
Harv Fresnel, yeah.
I have no idea.
That's something for someone to Google.
I
Was
think
Harv-
he was.
He was married.
I think because he had a little girl. Yeah, I think he was.
Well,
married.
he
Don't
had a
ask
little
me
girl,
how I
doesn't
know
he?
such obscure things.
I'd love to know how old that his daughter is now.
Well, the
Oh,
bottom
well,
line
Probably
though
your
is
age.
that then you're right. You would have been looking up.
Yeah, I would have been.
You'd
looking
have to
up.
run around with a little step stool
Yes.
every time you wanted to get some attention. So what we've
And
was
we
that
have
the
one-
maintenance
Yeah,
we're doing?
yeah,
we
we're
have
good.
One more item.
One more item.
And we already sold one, so there are 5 left available. And that is we are selling your dad's CD, Eddie Fisher, on stage. However, you are going to sign those live on the air at the end of the show.
So we're doing our little signature thing live on the air, and
But it means you have to take the wrapping off.
I got that.
so
Okay.
these are unwrapped. Well, you can decide if you want to keep it as a piece of memorabilia wrapped. But if you want me to sign it, then we will unwrap it, and I'll sign it in the back where there's some room back here, if you want me to. I don't know. You know, sometimes, like for me, I don't know what I would do sometimes with this. So I leave it up to the person because I'm not like
Right.
I'm a collector and I don't want everything always. I could tell you I have a lot of regrets of not getting things signed now. So I get it. You know, it's like there's a million things I could have put in front of my sister or my mother or whatever. And of course, you're always tomorrow. You always think, oh, I'll do this.
Oh,
another-
yeah.
And then there all of a sudden is no tomorrows.
You know, there's a con going on right now. Actually, I think tomorrow's the last day, and it's at the Ahern Hotel. So there's people, signing
Getting autographs.
And I know everybody because they're all television stars from the 80s. And it just kind of bugs me that everybody is down the street that I haven't seen in decades, and I would really love to have been able to
Now,
do that.
are we going?
Oh, you're how many of the CDs are there?
So there are 5 left available. There were originally 6, but 1 has sold.
Okay, great. And how much are they?
They are $30 a piece.
Okay.
And the shoes are selling for $200 on the store.
Okay.
And then the cufflinks are selling for $999.
Okay.
Right, and the reason why you'll notice that the jewelry that we put up is expensive. It's because it's real gold. And,
Yeah.
I mean, you literally could take this down to a pawn shop and sell it for scrap for $800.
Right.
So they have some weight to them. So I would just. Gold is an interesting thing to have, but it's never been a better investment that I've ever made in my life. Everything I have that's gold is up, and I'm glad I have what I have. You see all those commercials on TV. That's why I added it to my portfolio. And that's why I'm adding Eddie's cufflinks to my portfolio, because gold is going up at least, it's like all these funny commercials. So now we're going into the Eddie Fisher routine?
Yes.
No.
Well, the
Yes?
routine, well, we're not leaving anybody for Elizabeth Taylor.
No, but we're going to go into. We have got a sort of a really unusual show that found us.
Yeah, let me just, before you do that, tell you that a lot of people are saying happy birthday because your birthday is day after tomorrow.
Right, they won't get to.
And a lot of people thought it was your birthday today. Some people thought it was yesterday. My sister thought it was yesterday. You were getting a lot of happy birthdays. But it's actually the 24th. And I like it because then I'm only 2 years older than you are. See,
Well-
I'm 3 years older than you until day after tomorrow that I'm 2 years older than you, so I'm not as
What?
big as a cougar.
Oh,
Yeah,
this is out of control.
I know. I never told you that.
I
did
am shaken.
And the loafers just sold.
And the shoes are.
And the loafers are
Here, I want to do
sold.
something. This will be my last chance for you. Here.
Oh, you're
I'll
going
give
to
You
you
just
one
asked-
I
guess-
cannot
I'll give you
believe
a
it.
guess who bought them.
I bet you it's FF.
You just look at that.
Ferruccio bought them.
There they are.
Oh, look at the perfect fit, like Cinderella.
You know what? I love that kind of shoe.
Cinderella man.
They
Oh, a
remind
good
me of
loafer.
my dad.
Well, these shoes are pretty darn nice, I will say. But I have like a handful of shoes, that I actually wear of his, which you've seen me wear of some of his shoes. So I've tried to, spread it out a little bit. So what we have been doing is what I've been doing practically my entire life, which is unpacking and moving. So we've been moving boxes that came from California. Some were already here. And they're just, sometimes these boxes get put away as we arrive and you just don't touch them for a long time. This particular box that was being loaded and unloaded, the box was actually unloaded a long time ago into a filing cabinet. And what it was a box of Eddie's stuff. And many years ago, when I may have been married to Donna, but at least we were living, because Eddie was living at my house.
Yes.
And
I think you were married.
right, could be. I
Yes.
can't remember.
Yes, you were
He
married
writes
to-
about it in his book, in fact, that he was there. And it was a great time to get to know him. I'd never spent like that much time with him. But while he was there, everything was like great. And then one day I came home from work and he was just gone and there was no note, no letter, no nothing. So segue forward like, I don't know, 6 months or a year, I get a phone call from, I believe it was David Abel's Storage. And he says to me, "Are you Eddie Fisher's son?" And I said, "Yes." He says, "Well, I have an auction today where we're selling the contents of your father's house up on Beverly Estates Drive." Now, this is the house where he was with Elizabeth and all that.
Yeah.
So some a lot of stuff in there that I really wanted, but I didn't have the money. And this is also pre-ATMs. You have to be able to write a check on the spot, you know, or cash, you know, or forget it. And the guy was reluctant even to take a check. This was kind of like a cash thing. Anyway, I ended up buying boxes of his awards, and some of those awards we've shared with you, and I've saved some others. And there was just some miscellaneous boxes with pictures and photographs and papers. And I didn't really pay much attention to a lot of the things that were in the box. It just went into storage at the ranch for 40 years. And so somewhere along the line, it got moved back here to Vegas. I don't know exactly when. But it went into the filing cabinet, and I was going through the drawer of this filing cabinet, and I saw a lot of Eddie's stuff in there. And I stumbled upon 3 journals. So these are kind of your run-of-the-mill.
So these weren't in a box that we got after Eddie passed away, right?
No.
This is prior to
Yeah,
that.
I've had these a long time. I don't.
You just didn't know it.
Right. Well, there's a lot of things that I don't know that I have. But at any rate, if you notice on here, it actually says, like, it says day by day on the side. And these were actually charity journals from a charity event that my mother was involved with. And interestingly enough, this charity event was for children with disabilities. So and this is probably, you know, concurrent with the Thalians or otherwise. But here's something wild. Some of the benefactors, the angels for this charity, let's go to the close-up. Sidney Korshak. You see the 4th name down there on the side. Mm-hmm. So, you know, literally money is coming from, you know, the mafia here to support this charity. So I don't know who, you know, arranged that. But so I saw the book and I thought, well, but I think Eddie, I can't see him keeping a journal. So I opened it and a lot of pages were blank, and then all of a sudden there were pages, which I'll show you close up. You know, now there's some writing there all of a sudden. And I looked at it, and it's not my mother, it's not my father's writing. In fact, it's talking about Mr. Fisher. And so one of the first entries in this journal starts on January 21st of 1963. And it says, Mr. Fisher called and wanted to see the children. Todd was ill, so he took Carrie over to Desert Inn, room 148, had lunch, arrived at 1 p.m., left at 3 p.m. That would be a long time for him to have the kids. 2 hours is quite a stretch for him. And then the next day, again on the 22nd, took Carrie to see Mr. Fisher. 1:30 p.m. left, 3:15, Todd still ill. Now, that's what they think. I was sandbagging. No, I'm kidding.
How old were you at this point?
Well, I'm 5 years old.
Okay.
But we're in Vegas, and it's obvious that all of a sudden now I know who this is. This is Dottie Wolf, who was our nurse at this time. She was a professional nurse. This is back in the day where in order to get a job like this, you actually had to be skilled. Now they just take, you know, people from third world nations and call them nannies. They have no professional skills. But back in the day, if you wanted this gig, you had to be a registered nurse. This lady was a registered nurse, wore the nurse's hat and the whole, you know.
Really?
She was a real nurse.
You know, this is like a movie star, you know, kids nannies, because
Well,
I never heard of such a thing in my life. You know,
in my neighborhood.
I mean, I do now, of course, know what that is, but no.
Well,
I don't think anybody ever saw a nurse in the house with a hat on taking care of the kids, unless
No, that's what I saw.
you were
before.
from super privilege.
Well, I don't, see, in my world, it was, that's just the way it was.
No, it wasn't. It's not
That
a good
was
thing.
normal.
It's not a bad thing. It was normal for all of you and the kids and all the kids you knew in the neighborhood.
So I've now told you what these books are, and I'll summarize it by saying this is 3 years or over 1,000 days of a day-by-day journal of one thing and one thing only. This is a nurse's log of Eddie's interaction with Carrie and I. That's it. There's nothing else in here. So I have day-to-day everything that happened between Mr. Fisher and the kids. So obviously my mother put her up to this, right?
Yeah.
Then you might say to yourself, well, what the heck is Eddie doing with these journals? And why did Debbie do this?
I can't imagine how they ended up in his hands. And
Well,
I wonder is, did he ever look at them? Did he ever see them?
Well, I would venture to say that he kept them. I would venture to say that my mother did this so that he would have a mirror of how he was interacting with the kids. And the reason why she would have done that is because he was very vocal in the press about how everybody was at fault but him for the time spent with the children, and how people were keeping him from his children like some grand conspiracy. In fact, we're going to read from his book where he says more or less those exact words. Now, these journals actually started slightly before this. In fact, I found a card loose that started in 1962. And so this began in 1962. And I suspect she was keeping track of certain things, showed this to my mother, and said, you know, you want me to keep doing this? And I suspect that's how we got into the big journals. We marked a few pages here. I want to try to find the page. See if I can, without wasting a lot of time here. Oh, did you make notes here? Oh, did you make notes here? Yeah, let's see. Can't read his writing, but okay. Oh, so the Malibu story we don't need. I want the one about on parenting. This is probably the best one. Okay, I'll read this part. Now, this is his book. First book, Eddie, My Life. So he's saying that, I'll just jump in here. We parted without bitterness, and there was no nonsense about Trisha and Jolie. Now he's talking about Connie. Unlike Elizabeth, Connie did not claim sole custody. Unlike Debbie, she wouldn't make me feel guilty about our children. Now, what's funny about the tone of that is my mother was just saying something to these effect. Show up. The kids need and should interact with you. He's complaining that is her making him feel guilty. So is that really what it is, or is it somebody just saying, grow up? I was their father, and Connie expected me to be their father. I had not been a good father to Carrie and Todd. Okay, confession. Now, by the way, in this book, there's a lot of contradiction to some of that. But even if I had tried, Debbie would have found fault. Okay, so let's not try then, because Debbie's going to find a fault with my scheduling issues. We can't come and live with you, Daddy, Carrie once told me, because Mommy says you ran away and left us. Now, I can guarantee you I will bet my life and everything I have on one thing for sure. That never happened. Ever. Because my mother never said anything to Carrie and I negative about Eddie until we were teenagers. And then she was like, now you're old enough to know the truth. Nothing I did was right. Debbie criticized me for not visiting our children, and when I did, she criticized me for spoiling them or favoring one over the other. And on the day after my divorce from Connie, she made it very clear that I was setting them a bad example. Duh. that like, I mean, what mother would be like, okay, look, your father's, got some issues. Don't use him as an example. I mean, she didn't even do that. She could have said, pay no attention to the man behind that curtain.
No, and so many people do that, to the kids.
Carrie and Todd, now about 11 and 12 and a half, loved coming to my house. That is true. So far, pretty much the only truth. There were so many places to play and buttons to push. Todd was fascinated by all my electronics equipment, a fascination that later became his career. And they invited themselves over the day I divorced Connie. They thought Daddy would be sad and lonely. Not a chance did we think that. And I was very touched by their concern. I mean, you're giving an 11-year-old way too much credit.
Yeah.
This shows you how disconnected he is from being a parent and understanding the dynamics of children's mentality. He thinks that at 11 years old, we're concerned about how he feels about divorcing the next wife. Like, forget it. Anyway, I want to I'm not going to get into it. Next day, I took Carrie and Ted back home and found Debbie out by the pool. I'm sorry, she said, but the kids can't stay at your house anymore. May I ask why? Because you have a woman living there. What do you want me to do? Get married? Now, by the way, what we're talking about here is something I wrote about in my book. This is when he had the Scandinavian girl living there. You remember I wrote about the girl who was running around naked all the time and
Yes.
stuff? And of course, I'm sure
That
I
is
must have
where
said
you
something.
got your obsession with naked Scandinavian women.
Well, that's why I'm with you, for
No.
sure. I mean,
That's where it came from.
Zoftic, blonde, blue-eyed Scandinavian
If you
women
want to live
that are
to
older
see
than
another
me.
day, you will never call a woman softy.
I think that's a compliment. I was very angry. Why did Debbie always make me feel guilty than I already felt? Well, how do we know you feel guilty if you're constantly making excuses? No one knew better than I that I had neglected Carrie and Todd. Oh, okay. Well, let's just leave it at that. And now, if that pattern was repeated, Tricia and Jolie would grow up without a father too. So the good news of all of this is that, the thing that was endearing about my father was that he was willing to acknowledge his faults sometimes, and he wouldn't fight over it. Like, he never would have taken a position to fight over something that he knew was BS. Like, if you called him out on any of this stuff, he would own it. And that's an endearing quality, as opposed to the guy that's constantly, like the typical narcissist will get up there and try to run parallel universes.
But did you call him out on this?
Did I? Never. Well, let's go to the videotape.
Let's do
me
him
first. No, let's do me first, because there's a talk show here that we're going to run for you that's me on a talk show with Eddie.
Sally, Jesse,
Raphael.
Yeah.
Who was one of those people that used to try to mind mess you, with questions. So, having said that, are you ready for this? I see it. Go.
There are people who grow up without fathers. There are people who grow up with fathers, but having somebody who was sometimes there, tell me about that.
Well, he was definitely sometimes there. We had going way back when I was very early age, he was around periodically, and I would see him. And we had a relationship more like friends. We would pal around. He'd take me out, and we'd buy things, and we'd fill the entire swimming pool with bubble bath, and and so he was like another kid, more or less, And my stability came from my mother and my home there, because he was so unstable in his own life. Fortunately, I didn't have to rely on him. It's as bad as that sounds, but it's true. And he should have come live with me as my friend. He probably would have done all right. I don't know if my mother would have had him again.
I love your mother. I love Debbie Reynolds. How did she manage to pull off a career and raise you with that?
Well, she did a tremendous
How'd she
job.
do all of that?
I can't speak any higher for anybody than my mother. She is one of the finest people I know. I don't know anybody that has done the things that she's done for people as well as her family. If she's doing charity things, at the same time, I felt no, deficiency in my upbringing. I felt the love of my mother. There's one thing I knew that my mother loved me and that she would always take care of me, and she did. Right in the hard times that she went through all through her life, she was always right there for Carrie and I both. And, I know a lot of kids in my situation, with the show business situation, that didn't make it, that have really had a lot of problems. And I have to give my mother credit for that stability in the family. She was able to do that.
I have to give Todd credit, though. Todd had a problem with Carrie. They were experimenting with drugs way, way back. But Todd went to God.
That's right.
And
This is when you were how old?
Oh, I was about 19 or 20.
He tried to convert me. And I couldn't accept it at the time. I couldn't accept God.
He couldn't accept the unconditional love, the idea that there was somebody out there that would accept you regardless of what you had done. That was difficult. He's always come to me, and the reason why I've had difficulty in the past is because he couldn't accept the idea that I loved him anyway. I didn't require something of him, and that was important for me to get that across, but it just wasn't getting there, and it could have been the drugs. I really don't know. You tell me, what,
He's a dynamite guy. He really is. He's so bright, and I don't know where he got it. He's a genius, he really is.
No, but the reason why, when he was there, I was about 18 or 19, he came to live with me at my home, and while he was living with me, that he's right. I had just decided, I never believed in God. And and I didn't know, and this may sound very offbeat, but I didn't really know what the love of a father was. And my first understanding of what that relationship was the love of God. I accepted him as my father. And then I went to my father with that information, so to speak, and we established a relationship at that point, and that was when he was living with me back then. And then he got back into drugs and just disappeared again. I didn't know what to make of it because at the time I did not even understand that it was drugs. I thought he was clean. He's the one who then tells me that it was drugs again, but I mean, it was a shock to me.
It's a good thing you didn't depend on him.
Well, that's a good thing that he married my mother. You know, that was a darn good move.
Okay.
I watched that before about an hour ago.
Oh, you've seen it.
Well, for the first time, I just saw it. Seth showed it to me, and I watched it. And
Shouldn't do that, Seth. We need to shock her more.
well, I have to monitor things a little bit, you know. So I really love to see things before the air. But I found that really interesting because you could see. First of all, you can tell he's clean and sober.
Mm-hmm.
You can just see it.
Oh, yeah.
And
I wouldn't have done the show if it wasn't so.
there was a certain humility in him, in his presence, sitting there.
That was what I meant a minute ago when I said there was something endearing about that.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that he could own it, whatever he had done. He wouldn't offer it, but if it was there, you see how he reacted. And you know, silly Jeffrey Raphael's not letting you off the hook on anything.
No, absolutely. But I really liked him there. And I was a co-host on a show called Hour Magazine, just as a celebrity co-host. This was in the early '80s with Gary Collins, and I was just a guest co-host the day your dad came on as a guest. Eddie came on, and he was so. I said, "You're on your own with this."
He was completely wired, right?
Well, no, he wasn't wired. He was just out of it completely. And I didn't want to be there for the interview because I just didn't think it was appropriate. I thought Gary's a pro. He'll know how to handle this.
He would likely have been inappropropriate with you. That's why when we were in San Francisco passing through,
you didn't
we
take
just
me
kept
over
going.
to his house, right? But
That's a sad thing to have to say. But I remember we were driving, and I was driving the big coach.
Yep.
And we were coming down up north, and I was coming down on the 5, I think. And I thought, you know, it's going to be a train wreck, and he's going to say something inappropriate. And so why put everybody through that? Because it's going to piss me off, for sure.
And it was a new relationship.
Yeah, and it wasn't. Well, and it wasn't like I thought, oh, I'll expose her to my father and she'll run for the hills.
No, because first of all, when you've been in show business almost all your life, you know that barely phases you after a while because you're so used to, it's not like a corporate job where when we took diversity training and I thought, is this surprising to anybody? Because it's different when you're an actor. Everybody's flirty and everybody, so people say things and, you didn't get all up in arms about it. And,
they used to.
Yeah, well, they used to, exactly. But, it came with the dinner. I'm not saying anything happened. I'm just saying that kind of behavior came with the dinner. Anyway, let's get off of that.
Well,
Because I do want to say this.
Okay.
There's a lot of girls in the room that are saying how much they're really connecting to this because they had absent fathers. They had fathers that weren't there for them. They maybe didn't get along with, and so that's speaking to a lot.
Well,
of people.
I would just say that we have another clip.
Yep.
And you can hear from the girl that was affected by this man, my sister.
Yeah.
And Carrie is talking here about Eddie, and it is different for sure. What she experienced with Eddie was always different than what I experienced. And part of it had to do with Eddie as well. Mm-hmm. He was weird around here in a strange kind of way. He also knew he had some weird Svengali power over her. It was, and what it really was that what daughter doesn't want to know that she has the love of her father? Yeah. And for some reason, Carrie never got that from him. He was not able to convey that to her. No matter what was said or done, it just could not become part of her consciousness. I used to try to convince her that, just take just what I just said, like just take what's there, and that's all you're going to get, and you'll be satisfied that knowing that that's all. Don't try to think, oh, he's going to fit into some other mold, because the man is not going to fit into any kind of mold. And she spent a lifetime searching, for that acceptance and that love, and never got it.
Well, you said something kind of interesting on the Sally Jesse Raphael show, because one of the things when you are a Christian and you take that step into that way of thinking and believing for your life, if you had an absent father, and you are a girl, that is a big deal.
Oh yeah.
And I remember thinking the same thing, that what you were saying about being loved unconditionally by the Lord, and that you have a father on earth that wasn't there for you the way they should have been, but your Father in heaven is always there for us, the way that you need.
But not
And
everybody. That was an epiphany for me, and and I did share it with him, and it did blow his mind.
Yeah,
What-
well,
what-
when you really wrap your mind and heart and spirit around the concept of unconditional love, which is very hard for human beings to do. I'm not even sure, you're about as close as it gets to it. I actually never thought human beings could do it. Dogs are animals, they love us unconditionally. Why can't people just wag their tail like crazy when you walk through the door, just like our dogs do? Then you see, you always know what they want. But it's that's a really good point. And I remember, thinking that it made everything kind of better for me, that it didn't matter, that if my dad wasn't there for me emotionally. He was there for me in a lot of ways, and so I choose to focus on that. Because if I focused
Well,
on the ways he wasn't there, then
yeah.
it would take me down, and I would prefer to think of the good.
Well, and the cliche, of course, is, mothers and daughters, have a certain kind of relationship, and then daughters and fathers have a certain type of relationship. There's an interesting dynamic there. I obviously bonded with my mother and had my eggs in her basket.
Yep.
So I was really fortunate. Carrie had put her eggs in the Eddie basket, and
Yep.
that thing was constantly being dropped.
Yeah.
And so she was always getting broken. And I think that was largely responsible for some of her depression and unsettled nature. She never was very settled. Now, she was searching in many ways, but there was an unsettled side to Carrie. And that's also with the mood swings and everything. Let's run Carrie's clip. You have that?
Sure, yeah.
I want you to
before-
hear, we want to hear from Carrie directly. It's hard for me sometimes to speak for Carrie. In fact, it's like nobody can speak for Carrie. So let's let Carrie do it.
Also really strange to be watching with your brother. Your father was in like the first 2 years, or not even, yeah, like the first 2 years, and then never saw him again. But it was
You and me both.
so-
There was a weird Christmas I remember he did come. I don't know if I remember. Yes, I remember it. Because she was very flirty with him. Her body language with him was what I always called squeezy and tilty. And Harry was there, so it was, weird. And there's a picture of the three of them, and Eddie's hand is moving, so he's blurred, like he's in motion. And then you have Harry, and she's sort of caught between these two ideas.
Did she try to get him back after? Never.
Oh, God. If you haven't noticed, my mother has a lot of pride. She's some of mine. No, she would never do that. No, she's not that kind of crazy.
Right. But
She can pick them, but she won't repick. I do that.
that was pretty shocking. The how Harry and then Richard both with the gambling. And did Eddie gamble as well?
I think, no, I don't think so. Eddie was a, womanizer, but then so were the other two. They just weren't good looking also. No. She just, but the other two looked like a big swing from Eddie just visually. Like more daddy than, sibling. But in every other way, same thing. Compulsive, betraying, immature boys doing boy stuff, you know.
So who would you say, I asked this to Todd, not on camera, but who would you say what became closest to being a father to you, or no one?
Her. Or no one. No, there was no one. No, it was just sort of like Harry was a space saver, you know, it was, what do you call that when you, that was what we called, when my mother left, marker.
Okay. Well, there's no end to it, as you can imagine. But I think that sort of does show her take on it. You know, she doesn't discuss here, and I don't know if I have it or not, of her talking about the early days. But I do have my mother talking about when we were at the Conway house before we ever got involved with Carl, you know, Carrie waiting for Eddie to come and all that. And in his book, you know, I read earlier from his book, and you hear him acknowledging that he wasn't great at this, but he also, you know, did like to make excuses for some of this. And like, is this the one about the, I want the one about Elizabeth.
Well,
Well, yeah.
that's exactly right.
Remember the one where he was talking about the divorce? No, I think it was this one, actually. Was this the one? Let's see. No, might have been this one. Eddie on parenting.
Yeah.
First off, someone is saying how remarkable it is, your unconditional love for your dad. You can tell he was truly speechless from that in that first interview.
Yeah, I really like having the clips sometimes, because, you know, you could always sit around and reminisce about a conversation you had with a parent that's gone, and I might tell you the dynamic of it or how it felt or what it looked like, but it's really interesting to see what happened right there. I mean, you know, you do see how he's very responsive to my forgiveness. It's like speechless.
Without question, yeah.
You know, and I said, the actual words I used with him were a little different than what he said. He said to me, I really am struggling with this concept of, you know, being forgiven by God. It's really hard for me to absorb the idea that God could forgive me. I said, well, let me make it really simple for you. If I can forgive you, and I'm not God, how much more can God forgive you? And I remember that got him good. I mean, that was like, that message dropped in the slot, so to speak.
And how did you know that? Did he
He
cry?
eventually, you know, came to church with me.
Yeah.
And did things, you know, that a repentant person would do, which, by the way, I think is a critical component to why I would also be forgiving of him. I am not likely to be as forgiving of you if you have an attitude about everything that went down and you're blaming my mother all the time. That's going to piss me off because I know better. And so, and now, by the way, like never before, I actually have stuff in my hands here that's a day-to-day journal of him not being there. And even when he was there, it talks, I'm going to read you some of this stuff. It's remarkable, the detail of this, but it really outlines the exact level of involvement was all in these days on his terms and all of that. And I've told stories about all this, but I've never had any evidence. So what is evidence? Well, evidence, especially this kind of evidence, takes on a whole different dynamic. I can give testimony to something that I experienced in the first hand. But now you have written testimony by a nurse who's used to writing things down in a hypothesis nature. You know, she's constantly trying to keep track of conditions for doctors, or if you were doing research, you'd be keeping track of situations as they were unfolding so that you would have a way to prove. It's a thing called a proof. I mean, there's a short word for it, but in mathematics, to prove a theory, you have to have proofs. This, out of the filing cabinets of the depths of nowhere, comes a proof. And the remarkable thing about this proof is what it looks like. And I'm going to just bore you with reading some of it in sequence because it gives you a pattern.
I don't think that it's boring. You woke me up the other day. Todd reads to me when I wake up, or he reads me the news, or, it's kind of what we do. He wakes up way before I do. He wakes up like 5 o'clock in the morning. I wake up around 8. So around 8 o'clock, he'll wake me up and he'll read, and I'll say, tell me the news, and he will read it to me, or if he tells me a story. So the other day, you woke me up reading me because you had just found these.
Yes.
And so you woke, and you said, wait till you hear this. And you were reading it to me, and I just thought to myself, this is craziness, that you have your memories, but you have the solid proof and backup of what you remembered, and then some things you don't remember.
Oh, I don't
And so
claim.
there's a lot of fill in the blanks, even though, you really didn't know. You knew he wasn't there, but you didn't know the extent of it until you saw
do
these.
I remember being in Las Vegas in January of '63? No, I have no memory specifically. But here are pages. Todd took both children to see Mr. Fisher's show at the Desert Inn on Friday the 25th. 26th, Mr. Fisher called to say it was nice having the children at the show. Now, you could see this detail. She's putting this here because in her mind, this was a relevant fact that had to do with that. On the 28th, there's no contact. 29th, no contact. 30th, no contact. 31st, no contact. Friday, the 1st of February, children were in Vegas for the weekend, but Mr. Fisher didn't call. So here we are. Go to the close-up. Children were in Vegas, but Mr. Fisher didn't call. Now, let's analyze that for a second. He dragged the children with the nurse to Vegas. My mother obviously approved of this trip, and he didn't call and did not show up for the whole weekend. So we went home without seeing him because he was probably in love with somebody, or God only knows what he was up to. Now we get to the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, the 7th, and we have words that are frequently spoken, close up. No word from Mr. Fisher. Now that comprised the entire week. In fact, it comprised the second week, close up, and it goes to the third, into the third week, except in the middle of the third week. This is an important moment. Mr. Fisher is in town but didn't call. So she knows that he's in town. How does she know he's in town? Well, he's a famous guy. He's probably playing the Coconut Grove, right? Well, guess what the 22nd of February is? Today.
Oh, wow.
And what's going to happen in 2 days?
You'll have your birthday.
So what happened on the 23rd? Nothing. On the 24th, though, Todd's birthday, Mr. Fisher sent 2 presents to him, but didn't call. Now, what you have to understand is he had people.
Oof.
And they would go, somebody went shopping for me and brought over a couple of gifts, and he didn't call or anything. And you notice he's probably not going to call me on my birthday in 2 days, and it won't shock me. On the 25th, we continue with the no calls for the entire week, and we continue to the following week with no calls, and we continue to the next week with no calls. Let's leave it there for a second because this is very entertaining. And we go to the next week. Oh, and now a month later, by the way, don't forget on the 24th he never called, so we're really working on about a month and a half. Now we are a month from my birthday. Mr. Fisher hasn't called the children. But he's in town again. She knows he's in town. He says in L.A., hasn't called the children. So she's trying to figure out herself what the heck is going on here. Finally, Tuesday the 26th, Mr. Fisher called to call back, saying he's going to call on Wednesday. So he calls to say he wants to talk to the children the next day on Wednesday. But what happened? Everybody? Mr. Fisher No contact. Another week goes by, and now we get to the 3rd of April. Called Mr. Fisher to let him know about Todd going to the hospital. Now, interesting about this is that I'm not sure what this is, but I think it's the hernia. Is that what we think? We think it was me having a hernia. No, that was way younger, 65 years old. Maybe that was this. Anyway, I go to the hospital. Now the nurse we got a lot of notes here because you got a nurse, doing her thing here. So she's reaching out to Mr. Fisher. Now, the next day, Mr. Fisher stopped by to visit the children for 40 minutes. Children had to go to art class. Next day, before I left for now that, by the way, was Carrie, not me, because I'm in the hospital. Mr. Fisher called just before I left for the hospital. So here's the nurse going to visit me. Mr. Fisher came to the hospital to see Todd. Okay, so that 3 days later, he shows up with me in the hospital.
Yeah.
No rush. Mr. Fisher came to the hospital to see Todd. Something before Todd came down. Arrived before Todd came down. And then arrived before Todd came down. In other words, he didn't see me. Next day, no call from Mr. Fisher. We're back into the pattern again. Drop in the slot. No word from Mr. Fisher for that week. No word from Mr. Fisher. The next week, no word from Mr. Fisher. The next week, this is a kid who just got out of the hospital, for crying out loud. When are you paying the... another week goes by. I'm sorry. Now we are into another week. Okay. A month and a half later, Mr. Fisher called and said he would be in town. Now, the good thing about this is, you're really kind of asking for permission, to get put in a queue. He calls the next day and says he's checking in to see if we got the message. The next day he didn't call, but then the next day he called again, but then couldn't set a time. The next day he called the children, trying to set a time. Then says at 2 p.m. he took finally a week later he takes the children to dinner. On the 19th, saw Mr. Fisher for a few minutes before Todd left for school. At theater for something at 3:30. I can go on and on and on. The bottom line here, what's brilliant about this is that you have over 1,000 days of notes on his behavior and also on my mother's behavior, because keep in mind, if at any time my mother had said no, it would be in here. And there were a couple of conflicts in here where Debbie had us on the set or something else. But they were like, she said, okay, Wednesday's no good because I've got the kids on the movie set. Because don't forget, this is right in the middle of How the West Was Won and Molly Brown and all that stuff.
Right. I'm trying to think of who he was with at this time. Was it Connie?
No. Well, that.
In 1962.
See, I'm so 3, 4, maybe 5. At 5, the Elizabeth thing is over by the time I'm 5. So Connie came fairly fast after that. Then he had the Zoftic woman from Scandinavia, of which I found a picture. That was when I did my book, I talked about her, but I didn't have a picture. Later, I found a picture of her. And then I think Connie came after that.
But now, you were reading all this. I don't, some people remember further back than 5. Some people remember snippets of their life when they were that age. Do you remember feeling disappointed at this point when you're reading
this? I do
not. So this is all, thankfully, not remembered by you.
Carrie felt it.
Carrie was 2 years older.
She felt it.
Yeah.
I didn't feel it. Like, I can tell you, I remember being in the hospital. I even remember who my doctor was and all of that. Because I didn't, how many times you go to the hospital? Not hopefully not often. So I have memories of all of this. But his name was Dr. Levy, was my doctor. And he took out my tonsils and adenoids as they did in those days, not understanding what they were for. But I don't have any bad memories of it. So the kind of the good news for him in many ways was when I was old enough to sort of get introduced to him in many ways, I was like, oh, this is cool. This is your dad. Okay, cool, whatever. This is what a father is, right? I mean, I just, you know, you only know what you know. So in my way of thinking, you know, the mother is the person that you connect with and rely on, and the one that you feel love from. And everybody else is some other version of that. It's like these other, my grandparents, for example, were very much there. My grandfather, even though he didn't express himself like a woman or my mother, he was very much connected with me and loved to teach me. And,
Oh,
and
yeah.
that is love. You know, you always talk about the love language. You know, the language of love takes on a lot of different things. It's not always words. And my grandfather was very much a man of action.
Well, you know how I feel about words and action. When the words don't match the action, take it from an actress, it's just dialogue. And really, that's the truth. But, you know, there's some people saying things that I want to just
ahead.
acknowledge because it's such a universal thing we're talking about, and so many people can relate to it. But these are the ones that I'm just so true. John Greer said, all of these issues with our fathers made us stronger and better people. I agree with that, John, but it also could have gone the other way because there's 3 kids in my family, and I know that my experience as a child, which there are people that had it better and there are a lot of people that had it worse. And, you know, I could have gone either way. I'm so grateful. I'm a very strong person. I'm a very, you know, I got lucky. You know, I got blessed. You know, my brother he got quite damaged from my father being absent, you know, because it's a son and his father and da-da-da. So it can swing either way.
Well, was older, first of all.
But
and
yes, it can, and he's older than I am. But it can swing either way. But I'm really feel grateful that for me, it did put me into the stronger category. I learned how to cope at a young age. If I said how did this all affect me in a negative way, I think in the negative way. I mean, I've been married 3 times, and you know, so I didn't. It's just surprise night. I'm 2 years older than you, and I've been married.
I'm
so
shocked.
you know, here's the thing. I didn't how it affected me. I didn't know what a model for love was supposed to look like. You know, I didn't have a model for that. So I stumbled through life in my relationship. So I was successful in a lot of ways.
I'll tell you that.
Thank you.
Good casting, anyway.
But I had to wait till I could see what real love moved like and looked like, and know if I was in a real good, a good loving relationship. I've had some.
I think people blame their parents, though.
Yeah, I know. I never.
The cliche, though.
Yeah,
of
no,
course.
I don't do that.
I won't call it the Freudian cliche, where Carrie's line is somewhat true, but not for me. Where she says your parents F you up, they don't mean to, but they do.
Yeah.
Like so many generations before them.
Right.
They hand down misery generation to generation. Well, I mean, some of that is true, and maybe in a way my father was unconsciously, in his misbehaving, transferring his messed up ways to his children. But fortunately, my mother was there to shield us from all of that. People used to say to me, what's it like growing up in the shade? You know, I mean, in the shadow of Debbie Reynolds, you know, and I'd say she gives great shade. And more than that, you know, she blocks the evil rays.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, she definitely, part of this journal here, you know, is designed, it's a very remarkable thing. And I know I'm right about this because why would he have Dottie's notes? Why? Why wouldn't she have Dottie's notes? Well, because she had to give them to him. Dottie would have never given Eddie anything because she didn't respect him at all. You could tell by the tone here.
Yeah.
This is a nurse who has some disdain from her subject.
But to his credit, he did not throw them away.
Well, then why is that?
It could be anything. But you know that we're talking about that.
No.
Okay, well, why didn't he throw them away? We will never know.
We will not quite ever know, but I'm going to tell you why. Because in my opinion, the same reason I said a moment ago that there was an endearing quality about him in his self-humiliation, you know, and recognizing his shortfalls and not always trying to make excuses that the dog ate his homework. You know, he might have held on to this because it was a mirror that was given to him. a mirror that reflected his behavior for over 1,000 days and how he interacted with his children. And whatever he wanted to be in denial about it, you could go to the notes, and remind yourself, you know what, I really did
In your case, let's
do that.
go to the videotape.
Well,
That's
in my world, I do have a lot of videotapes that I can go to. Now I have some remarkable notes. If you remember last week, we went to the telegrams and the love letters.
Yes.
So when Eddie writes in his books, blah, 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 I didn't love Debbie, and then we go to the telegrams where he's quoting Shakespeare and all the Gates and all this love poetry, you're like, that just doesn't match up.
Yeah.
So you can write. I always find that, people have selective memories, especially when you're writing a book and you're trying to write something sensational. And I don't know what he was thinking in some of this stuff. And his second book that he wrote really made me mad, more so than this book.
Right.
And it was because he said some terrible things about Carrie, and I just, it was unforgivable in my mind.
But you forgave him.
Yeah, I never let him off the hook.
Yeah.
I'll do a Debbie for you. I forgave him, but I'll never forget.
She used to say that all the time. I know that. Well, somebody said something else that I really like. Mary Mason, she said, who would have thought this episode would turn into a therapy session for all of us? Her check is in the mail, which I think is really great, because it's so true. You don't realize just how universal this particular issue is.
Oh, I have lots of people, that come up to me in the world and talk about how they relate to some of the things. And, there's so many breakups that we don't know about that we're not as famous,
Yeah.
But people have been through a lot of this. And the one thing, my message, it's interesting, was really laid forward in that talk show. I think that if I didn't have that approach, I could be bitter, angry, I could hold resentment and all of that. But I see it all so clearly. I see him, I see the good side of him. As the song goes, I look at love from both sides now.
I know it well.
And that's what I did. I was looking at it from both sides. I could look at it as his son. I could also take a perspective at it as a human being and understand the condition. And he had some serious issues. I mean,
Yeah.
But
Bringing that subject back, Ian, slide 41 here in our audience said, what led you to Christ when you were 19?
well, I had spent, and I alluded to it there. I didn't believe in God growing up. In fact, my father claims that he made a deal with my mother that I would be raised as a Jew, because my father's Jewish and my mother was a Nazarene, but he wanted to be raised as a Jew. So he says in his book he made an agreement with her. Now, my mother, unbeknownst to him, actually kept that agreement, except she did it in her diplomatic way. She let Carrie and I go to temple and meet the rabbi and attend a Hebrew class and go to a temple regular service. And then also she let us go to the Presbyterian Church in Beverly Hills and experience a service there. Both experiences were void of God. I mean, they were religious institutions that talked about God, but there was the Spirit of God did not live there. And you now I know the difference, but at that point I didn't know. I just knew there was something missing from that story. So Carrie and I chose to be members of the Presbyterian Sunday school class, and the simplicity of just learning the books of the Bible to graduate, as opposed to having to learn an entire language, as in Hebrew school, you'd have to learn Hebrew and learn the Torah and other things. So it's like, no way. So that kept me away from God. Also, there was people, if you remember back in the day, begging for money all the time in the name of God. That annoyed me to no end. And I used to think, gosh, if these people really represent God and they're always out there begging for money, I really don't want anything to do with that. So I had these, just like we all do, you have all these examples of things to keep you away. Religion is the greatest excuse to not want anything to do with God that I can think of. And the history of religion is equally destructive. I mean, the pattern of people doing things in the name of God is horrendous. So it doesn't take much to find yourself not believing in God. But it was, I had this epiphany, and I was working on a record, as a recording engineer with Frank Wilson, who's a producer, did the Supremes, a lot of people, Fifth Dimension, I think. But I was doing R&B records with him. And, he invited me up to this retreat. And there was a doctor speaking there. His name was Dr. E.B. Hill. He was a Baptist preacher. And this guy told a story about a man named Jesus who took the sins of the world upon himself. And man, he told this in a way that was remarkable. And unlike any other thing I'd ever heard, the Spirit of God was all over what he was saying, and the truth of it was there. And it didn't hit me at that moment entirely, although I have to admit I was like mind-blowing by some of the things he was laying out. I did not know, even though I grew up around a lot of Christian stories. I knew the story of Christ and all that. But driving home from Lake Arrowhead, I had to pull over because the Spirit of God fell on me. And I cried for the first time in 10 years. And I felt the love of God all of a sudden out of nowhere. And I think what had happened up there also is he had asked, those of us that were relating to what he was saying, to just open up your mind and your heart to what I'm saying and, let God move in your life. He probably said something I don't remember him saying it, but it hit me like a ton of bricks. That changed my life in that split second on the side of the 134 freeway that Sunday or Saturday afternoon. So that's how that hits you. And I think for anybody, that has those questions, that, when you look at a lot of the available stuff, you could see how it keeps people away. But if you get it back down to the simplicity of just you and God, it changes. And when you can get it quiet like that, that's when you start to hear. I don't hear voices. A lot of people talk about they hear from God. I feel from God.
Exactly. I have, in feeling from God, though, which has happened to me about 4 or 5 times in my life, where it was so strong
Sure.
that it's as good as hearing it, because you know without a doubt, or as we say, you know what you know what
Well,
you
you
know.
like to call it intuition and such, and it is a
Well,
component
I
of
do
that.
believe intuition
It's a
is a
component of that.
God-given gift, and I do believe that we are spoken to on a spiritual level through our intuition, and everybody has it, and it's just a question of tapping into it. But I'm talking about those 4 or 5 times where it was a message for me that was profound and life-changing, and something I needed to change. I wouldn't have thought of it on my own. I didn't hear audibly. I felt it audibly, if that makes sense. So
No,
it's the
that's
same.
my point, because people hear people on TV sometimes saying, God told me this or that, and you start to think these people are out of their minds, but in some cases, it's just what I'm saying. It's just something as simple as
you
that.
feel it, and there's no doubt what you are feeling and where the feeling is coming from. It's a very different thing. When people talk like that, I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't talk about that much, but if it's a story that relates to something someone's going through, I'll share that. But,
Well, here's an interesting way to look at it, because one of the things that is said when people ask Christ or God to come live into their life is they ask them to come live inside of them, to be part of their life, to live in their hearts. And then that way, I used to say on my show, that way, if you let God live in your heart, he can go everywhere with you. So you never have to be without him. You never have to be alone. But if that's true, that God does come and dwell in you if you ask him to, then that means that we're all part of this body of Christ and can experience the love of God at any moment, at any time. And you can hear from him in your consciousness, in your as you said, when you have the, what do you call it, your intuition. I mean, isn't that what you're doing? You're trying to feel the voice of God.
well, it comes over you. I mean, it isn't. It's really a strange thing. Like, I often will know something 5 minutes before it happens, and I don't think that I have any psychic ability.
Well, that
it's
was
just
my
that
mother.
I'm tuned
Look out,
in.
right?
I mean, it happened today with Seth. It happened yesterday with somebody else, where I was thinking something, and someone walks in and said, "Hey, blah blah blah." I'm like, oh my gosh, I knew that, you know. But anyway, I do want to just say that, you know, the church that you started with Henry was called the Hiding Place. And it was, I think I joined it in 1981.
Yeah.
And so that's where I would see you. You know, and I remember waiting in line after a service to talk to Henry, who was our pastor, and your best friend, and who started the church. You started it together. I was waiting in line after a sermon, and you were waiting in line behind me. This is so weird.
I don't remember any of
I
it.
know, of course you wouldn't. You didn't know who I was, you know, and you were just, your mind was somewhere else, and you were just kind of waiting there behind me, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, you know, should I let Todd go ahead of me because you know, but you waited patiently to talk to him, and seeing you across the room, and then you took your father to that church, where, you know, after. And I took my father to that church because my dad came to visit me and stayed with me for a week. And that was really strange to be with him as an adult, you know, for a whole week. And it was very interesting. And I took him to church with me even though my dad didn't believe. So he wanted to go. I didn't force him to go or guilt him to go. He wanted to go to this very church that you took your dad to, which was in fact your church.
But it was a very easy place to take somebody.
Yes, it was, because it was a non-denominational church, and we had the most phenomenal music. And and I mean, we were a mega church before the mega church existed, because there were 1,200 seats or something in the auditorium.
One of our mottos was based on some of the simplicity of Henry and I's philosophy, from being sort of these young, uneducated in many ways, but in a good way, you know, non-religious concepts, which was judge not lest you be judged. And that was kind of how we analyzed the membership base. In other words, anybody.
Yeah.
And so you know, like there were a lot of people at the time that were trying to judge gay people or people, you know, that just, you know, there's always this, and to this day, I mean, there's a lot of religious organizations that would judge that. And I always look back at Christ's behavior, you know, in his time, and which was a lot more conservative than this time, but he was accepting of everybody, the worst of the worst, the best of the best, accepted them all, made them all disciples as examples. And I just thought that was a great way to structure a church, and that's how we did it, and that's why it felt the way it felt.
Oh, it was an incredible thing, and I remember when my dad came with me to church that Sunday. It would have been the only chance he ever had to do this, and I was getting ready to go to church, and he was the one that said, "Where are you going?" And I said, "I'm going to church," and he had a lady friend with him, and he said, "Can we go?"
Oh, you're not a member, you can't go.
He said, "Of course you can go."
Yeah.
Okay, this is where it gets really like, whew, and I'm wondering what your visit with Eddie was there, because so my dad, who didn't ever, I don't think he believed in God. I mean, it just was never spoken about in our house. So I never brought it up. He knew how I felt. He knew that. But so he goes. He sits in the back. I'm sitting in the center of the church. Henry's sitting directly in front of me. That's our pastor. He turns around to me and says, "Do you want to give your testimony today?" He has never asked me to get up and speak in the church. Never. And I was so shocked. And I said, "Okay." And I got up there and I talked about growing up, you know, and
I yike you.
I yike you. I would walk around everybody and say, "I yike you." You know, I loved the world and everybody in it, and I kind of feel the same way today, you know. So I don't know why, but I think it's because God had his hands on me from the very beginning, and I'm the one that walked away during my adult life. And it finally in my 40s came back and went, "I'm done. I am done walking away. It doesn't work. I need this. I need you. I need you in my life. I'm never, ever going to walk away." And so, but this went on, and that the beautiful part of my dad being there that day was that when I gave my testimony, I was very upfront about my childhood. I forgot that he was in the back. It didn't even enter my mind. turns out to be a really great story. That's what a testimony is. That's why when bad things happen to us, we have to make sure that it's a testimony. Because other than that, if you don't make it that, then it's just something bad
Well,
that
it could be
happens
the
to
obituary.
us. Yeah, exactly. So my dad, I couldn't find him after the service. So we were all just, thousand of us standing outside. And finally my dad, I never did find him. He just ended up back at my house. A couple years later, my dad dies unexpectedly. I am gutted because I know that he wasn't saved. He didn't believe that Christ was his Savior, died on the cross for his sins, and would be in the kingdom of heaven forever, which is absolutely what I believe. And I was tortured over this, because I wanted my dad to be in heaven with me someday, So my brother and I were talking to one of the people that was, I don't know what you would call him, but he was one of the people that worked with Henry and
Yeah, we were ushers and
yeah,
whatnot.
but more than that, the people that when people
Like
did
Barry
an,
would
when
be
they
in-
did
like-
an altar call.
yeah, like
in fact,
Barry
I think it might have been Barry.
Yeah, he'd be.
So we were talking about how we were angsting over my dad dying before we had a chance to, and he said, well, I met your dad. And we thought, well, when? And he said, he came to church once with you. And we said, yes. And he said, your dad came down for the altar call, and we took everybody in the back, and he prayed the sinner's prayer. And because I had no idea. He never mentioned it.
It is a disturbing thing.
But it was wonderful to know.
Well, and I said to you something the other day. You were concerned about a friend of yours, and I said, God is big enough at any moment, even in the last moments of consciousness.
Yeah.
That's why the last thing to die in your body are your brain cells. It's like, God, I believe, appears to people in those last moments. I've been with people in their last moments, and they see things that you don't see.
Mm-hmm.
So there's another dimension to the world, and when you leave your body, that dimension is open, and I think at that point you see things, and you can at that point once again choose to accept God or not. You can choose to say I don't care. Maybe you're an angry person. I've seen the angriest people at those last moments melt, and I've just seen God move like that. I don't know even after the consciousness point what happens. I just say God is big enough to move in people's lives. You did all you can do. You know what I mean? You try to live around your family and your friends, and you try to be an example to them, and you hope that they find forgiveness and happiness. That's why we're all here. And then you angst over it. When Harry Carl died, my mother called me, and I burst into tears over that. It was early in my life as a Christian, and I really had no clue with him because they kept me away from him. No one told me till he had been gone for days. So that was very disturbing to me.
Yeah.
But I kind of came to peace with it, so far as to say that, God's big enough to handle all of his kids. And whether you choose at that moment then or the last moment of the last brain cell checking out,
Yes.
the opportunities are there. I think more people make it through than not. There are some people that I think are really bad people that have become, let's just say the bad of the worst of the worst. But you can't even write them off because why the heck was Jesus running around with all those folks? So I just don't know that you can write anybody off. You've read me letters from people that were in prison that were the worst of the worst that had epiphanies.
In the prison ministry that I worked with, I worked with some of the most infamous serial killers, and I've met face to face, and had these discussions with people. And I read you a letter from one of them.
Well, that's what made me think
and
of this.
it was a woman, actually, and she is a very
She may never get out of
infamous,
jail,
I should say.
but she may find her way to the kingdom of heaven.
Oh, no, she did.
I'm saying,
I saw it.
She died in jail, probably.
No, she's still alive.
Oh, she's still around.
Yeah,
But
I
I'm
looked
saying
her up after
many
I
of
read
these
you the
people,
letter.
though, regardless if they ever make it out of jail to pay for their sins on earth,
Yeah.
they owe they owe a debt to society that has to be paid. That's how society functions.
No, and some people, and I worked in the, with the female population in maximum security penitentiaries. I also went to, 2 or 3 times I was in the penitentiary that shared with the male prisoners as well. Very completely different experience, but nonetheless very rewarding. But I would get very attached to certain prisoners, the girls, and and I'd say, I hate that you're in here. And one looked at me in the face and she said, oh, I don't want you to feel that way. I need to be in here right now. And it gets me because she knew, that's where she needed to be. But this was also, this girl, I just saw so many miracles that there's no one that could ever. I've had the best of the best atheists try to talk me out of how I believe, and I'm always like, listen, when you have seen what I've seen, when you know what I know, you will realize that there's just no one that could ever talk me out of this, and I don't want anyone to think that what they believe is wrong. I'm not here to do that, but I'm also I've seen incredible
I've
things.
been talked to by some of the smartest people on earth, trying to convince me that my position on faith and believing in Christ is illogical, irrational, and actually not scientific. And
that it's not.
My favorite thing to say is, well, it's funny you should bring that up because your position in believing that there is no God and all of that is also a position of faith. And I don't have as much faith as you do.
Yeah.
Because when I look around me, I see all the wonders that God has done on earth, in people and in nature and everything, and I can't help but to see God. Now, I find it remarkable that you could look at all of that and have the faith to believe that it all came from nothing and it all ends up in nothing. So both are religious positions is the point. So if you're going to choose a religious position, atheism or faith, I always felt that the odds were better in the faith department because there's an upside. Let's say you're right. And when this is over, it's over.
Right.
Okay, then that's what happened. But let's say I'm right. Which train do you want to be on?
I want to be on that train.
Right.
Okay, so we're going to give stuff away, and I loved this show tonight because I never know where these shows are going to go, and we certainly didn't plan to go here, but I'm so glad we did because I think, the world just needs right now to know love and all that. But before we do go to giving the gifts away and all that, I do want to say something about the subject that was the dominant theme of tonight's show, which so many people related to. And it's one thing that has set me free, about anything that I might have missed out with my dad. My dad and I lived together. I was raised by him for years, but he was just not there emotionally. He couldn't be. He didn't even have that. And it wasn't until I was probably in my 20s or so that I started to realize, and not on my own. This is one of the things that I think God showed me, but I want to share with you because so many of you have said that you relate to this. And it's simply that people can only give us what they have, and they can't give what they don't have and what they don't know. And so one of the things that really allowed me to let go of any hurt or any blame or anything that I might have felt was the ability to say, that was his best. That was their best, both my parents. Not bad people, not at all. But that was their best because that's what they knew. And so, when you look at it that way, or at least when I did, it helped me to say, okay, then as sad as that best was, I'll take it. You know what I mean? Because, and it helped me to let go. It helped me, I never thought, I have to forgive. I didn't have that feeling. It was really just more, let go now and find love and define it for yourself and, let that find you and you understand that all the because people would, in the day would say, "You're divorced, or you've been married twice, or this," and like a some kind of guilt trip, and you'd think, "Well, yeah, and why is that? Because I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know. My parents didn't know, and so at some point you have to educate yourself, and you have to give people a break because of that. And I know that for some people that's going to be a hard thing to hear, but it's for you to be able to let go,
Well,
for
Buck,
you to heal.
Buck brought up something interesting when we were talking about what we were going to do, and we ran that clip of me on the talk show, and he says, "Oh man, you threw your dad under the bus." And I said, No. I said, he threw himself under the bus. I just said, "What are you doing under the bus?" I'm just observing what you did to yourself, and then I'm saying it though. So that's the reality. Don't let your parents blame you, for what has happened. Don't let anybody blame you for their shortcomings. They threw themselves under the bus. All you saw of my dad were his arms sticking out of either side of the bus. He threw himself far under the bus.
And the wheels went boom, 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 boom.
I mean,
that's right.
My gosh, and no one, and he would be the first person to tell you that he was the one that did it.
Yep.
Bad choices.
Yep. Well, I just am so happy because
Any questions, Seth?
I think there was one more, at least, Seth, while you look, I think I had one more. I try to write
well,
things
everybody's
down.
just saying how much they loved the show tonight and how the subject matter got, from your dad to this conversation about, faith and God. And let's see, I'm reading something right now. Oh, I see. So Latest Style says, Todd, your thinking is just so, quote, in tune with what matters for so many people. Simple, straightforward, and easy to grasp, which I agree with.
Well, that's the beautiful thing about a pure relationship with God. If religion will complicate the thing, do you realize that the Jewish faith could fill this room with doctrine, rules, and what they call the Torah, and it's thousands of volumes and thousands of pages. The Catholic Church has all kinds of added stuff. And I'm not putting down the institutions, but if it's void of Christ's, the living God in it, then it has no business. It's just a thing. So simplicity is everything. Because one thing about Jesus, he was super simple. His philosophies were super simple. What is his whole philosophy? The greatest of these is love. So if you're confused, just back up and say, is this in love? I'm analyzing something. Is this being done in love? Is this being received in love? I mean, there's a lot of simplicity to all of this stuff. The world has gotten complicated, obviously, but these truths, if you get right down to the roots of them, are very simple and overly complicated. I love that the teachings of Christ are very simple, and I think the more you make it complicated, the more it turns into religion, and the more it turns into manipulation of the masses. And that's why I would agree with people that get turned off to God at that point. I mean,
Right.
Look at the stuff going on in the Middle East for thousands and thousands of years. And somehow we're over there right now, again, expecting another set of circumstances to come out of this. Look, for thousands of years, these people haven't been able to get along. They have different philosophies. And what are they fighting over? God. Their idea of God. You need to think the way I think, to believe the way I believe. I'm going to kill you.
I kill you.
It's like, what does that have to do with the love of God? And I don't even believe half the stuff even in the Quran would support these points of view. So I'm just suggesting that I like what she said. I think it has to be simple. Or if it's complicated, I'd be suspicious.
Yes. Okay, so before you're going to sign some things, we're going to give away some things. I don't know
Do you
if
know what
Dan
I'm
Hogan
signing?
is still
I
here,
have
but
what
I
you're
got
gonna
your
sign
message
right
on here. Dan Hogan is a former entertainment reporter. I think he's retired now. And he's saying how he enjoys our show. And And so thank you, Dan. We really appreciate that because I know we have people here. It's a lot to sit through, but sometimes the subject warrants it. So there
We
you go.
generally are on some kind of a marathon.
Exactly. Okay. Oh, I know. So we're going to,
Who am I
Todd's
signing
going
these
to
to, and what
sign
am I doing?
these, and then Kyle's got the wheel up. So while Todd's opening these to sign, let me just tell those of you, because we have a lot of people here. So if you're new here, if you made a comment tonight, your name got entered onto the wheel that is about to spin. You will see it's a randomizer wheel, and it randomly picks 6 people to whom they will be winning a prize. And then after that, we have the super wheel, which is anyone that donated tonight. And by the way, I just want to say hi to Scott Michaels from Dearly Departed here on YouTube. I love his channel, and Jordan the Lion. So Jordan Lee is here, and his YouTube channel is Daze, D-A-Z-E, with Jordan the Lion. Scott Michaels is Scott Michaels Dearly Departed. Thank you both so much for coming in and always supporting us in every way that there is, and teaching us, how this whole thing works. And the super wheel is going to be after this wheel, and those are the people that donated tonight, and we really appreciate you. All money that we make from the things we sell, from the things that you are donating, go to the production of the show, and most importantly, our legacy projects, like the redoing of Debbie's sign and the redoing of Debbie's lights. And all of the things that we do. So thank you. We appreciate you. So
now, am I signing this to a person?
Yes, you have the names?
So the Eddie one is
okay.
what?
To John.
Do you have a silver one or just the gold?
Is that John Greer?
Silver in here. I have
Okay.
black there. There's a black.
No, I need
John Greer.
Okay.
So John?
J-O-H-N.
The other John H., is coming to see your show.
Oh, yeah, he said that.
Yeah,
Thank you,
so your
John.
show, so while I'll just go ahead, if you want to just throw a camera on me, I will go ahead and plug Seth's show. Seth has a show coming up here in Las Vegas on, is it this Wednesday?
Gotta need silver.
Well, I'm sorry.
Okay, that's all right.
Can't do it.
I will come back to that.
26th.
I have it, the 26th here in Las Vegas at the Composer's Room. If you want more information, you just go to Seth's Facebook page. I have a show in Pennsylvania, April 26th. I'm going to do a comedy hypnosis show, a little mind reading at the top. And it's to raise money for the Four Diamonds, which is a wonderful charity that this is our 11th year, I think,
Who's
Ryan,
this going to?
of doing it. And so if you are wanting to have more information on that,
Spelling?
Ryan can throw up a in the messages right now a link to find out more about that. But really, all you have to do is go to katherinehickland.com, and you can see how to buy tickets for that. If you're in Pennsylvania or anywhere near Pennsylvania, you should come in because it's going to be a really great night, and I look forward to meeting you. So that is that. Now, do you want to hit the camera on Todd while he is signing? Because, of course, anyone that gets a signature gets a little piece of tape showing that. So, Buck, go ahead, and there you go. You're on him. And then I will start.
Okay, so close up there's Madeline's.
Madeline Moore. There's your signature.
And I guess what I'll do with John is I'll put it on this side. I can't because it won't show up without the.
You can sign the actual
does sort of-
case. You can sign the front of the CD. That's what I
It'll
used to
wear
do.
off though.
No. No.
This always wears off.
No. You can sign the actual
Oh, the
CD itself,
CD?
the front. Yeah, I've done that many times. So not the bottom. Yeah, the top.
Okay.
There you go. So who's this for?
John, J-O-H-N, for John Greer.
John Greer. Here comes your signature. And there it goes. And is there a third one, or is that? Okay, so we're good there. All right. So as soon as you finish with John, you want to show that. It's not on camera. There it is. Okay. John Greer, thank you so much, and thank you, everybody. Let's go to the winners, shall we? Isn't that what Debbie said? That's what matters. The winners. Here we go. She loved contests. All right. So, Kyle, you are spinning, and I'm going to go ahead and let you do that, and I will tell you what the prize is as soon as I know. There it comes. All right. The winner is Doo Wop King 2011. All right. I'm so excited because I just spoke of this person.
Do-wop, bop.
That is crazy. I love when things like this happen. You have won the Miracle Working Muscle Gel. This is the travel size, so it's so great. But I will tell you, if you have any aches and pains, Doo-Wop King, you are going to be one happy camper because you put this gel on. It goes right into the muscles and gets rid of all of that ache and pain that you have in your joints. Doesn't matter if I put it on my feet, the bottom of my feet. Some nights when I have restless legs, I put it on my legs. My neck and shoulders are always needing it, also my back. Congratulations. It's from my company, Cat Cosmetics, at catcosmetics.com, and I donated this. Miracle Working Muscle Gel. You are going to love this, but what you need to do is write at catandtoddlive@gmail.com and send us your address so we can get that out to you, okay? You have to claim it to get it, so there you go. That's prize number 1. The second winner is let's see here. Nicole Talencio. Nicole Talencio, you have won. This, I don't know if you saw these or if you have them. If you do, let me know. But this is a postcard book. It's actually my postcard books, and when I go to autograph shows, I always have these with me. We also sell them on the website, and it's a linen back, and it's got just, how many? 9 postcards in it, Seth, do you know? No, it's more than that. Yeah, there's 9 pictures of different parts of my career in here, and also on the back is my bio. So I will sign this if you want me to, Nicole. Just let me know. Make sure you write catandtoddlive@gmail.com, and I will get this out to you. Thank you so much. All right, winner number 3. Kyle is spinning the wheel. I love this wheel. Remember when we first started out, we used that little wheel from like the 1800s that used to, and it would go click, 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 click. Joe Hughes! That's Beth Hughes' husband. Joe Hughes, congratulations. I don't know what you've won. Seth has not shared that with me. That's okay. That's all right. Oh, Joe, I hope you were a Knight Rider fan, because if you were, it's got a protective coating on it right now. I can take that off and sign it for you if you want me to. I was on a really fun show called Knight Rider. I played Stevie Mason, the love interest of Michael Knight on the show. And so this is a replica that I have of the license plate that was on the car, otherwise known as KIT, Knight Industries 2000. And the stickers on there are May 1982 because that is the year that the show premiered. So Joe, if you want me to sign this, let me know and send me your address at catandtoddlive@gmail.com, and I'm so happy that you won, Joe. All right, we're going to the next winner and the next prize as well. Let's see here. And Ebert Joshua. Ebert Joshua, you are the winner of On Stage with Eddie Fisher. So this is Todd's dad, Eddie's. First of all, what a singer he was. I will tell you now, unbelievable. And this is this live on stage, Todd? Yeah, so this CD was recorded live on stage, and this is coming to you, Ebert Joshua. You just need to send us your address at catandtoddlive@gmail.com. Congratulations. I think you're a first-time winner, so that's a good thing. And then we have, I don't know how many more. Is this the last one?
Here,
2 more.
I want to
Okay.
show real quick, close-up camera real quick, just for Henry. Frank wanted the shoes signed, so I have
Congratulations, Frank.
signed the shoes for Frank on the bottom.
The bottom and the
and
inside.
top, just in
All
case
right.
there's any misunderstanding of what's up and what's down.
Congratulations, and thank you so much. All right.
One thing about the cufflinks.
Okay.
We're going to, you go to the close-up for a second. We are going to provide a shirt, a French cuff shirt to go with this of Eddie's.
Okay.
Makes sense, because if someone's got the cuff, if they want it.
Yeah.
Now, if they don't care, that's fine. But I have some of his dress shirts.
And those are available on the DebbieReynoldsStudioStore.com. All right, so the next winner is Allison Mills. Allison, congratulations. You have won. This is the program from Carrie and Debbie's Public Memorial that we put on. And it is very special because I actually designed this, and I remember being out of my mind at the time. So I did this with my subconscious because we were so messed up from it all. But it was the inside, great picture right here. Also on this side right here is the program, and I love it. Allison has that, so hold on. Well, then let me get Allison, do you have the program for Annie Get Your Gun? If not, okay. So Allison, you'll let us know. This is a very... Yes, so we're going to... Okay, I just have to finish this. Because if she already has it, she can write us and tell us that. But we have to let people go because we're going on 2 hours now. So, Allison, this has got page after page after page. It has my posthumous crush in here, Harv Presnell. It's just an amazing program. But you write and let us know if you already have that as well. And congratulations. And now we're going to the super wheel. Is that correct? Okay. So we are going to the super wheel. These are the far less names on this because these are the people that donated to our show last week. So those are the names of those of you. And if you donated last week, you are on the wheel. If you donated tonight, make sure you watch the end of the show crawl because we make a special crawl just for you. So here we go. We're going to spin that wheel. And we're going to go to the winner is Julie Vandeveer. Julie Vandeveer, you have won. Let me just see what I'm looking at.
It's signed.
Oh, it's assigned. Okay. So this is Debbie's program from
The hotel.
the hotel. So it was from the Debbie Reynolds Hotel and Museum. And I'm going to sit because I really do want to see. So you have one, two, three. Okay. So you have 3 pictures of Debbie in black and white here. And then also you have the program. And this is from the hotel. I love this. I've never really had a chance to. I love the picture on the back so much. But it is signed by Debbie. There it is. That's Debbie's signature right there.
I'll show it.
I'm going to have you show it to her. And Julie Vandeveer, I thank you so much. And all of you who donated last week and those of you who donated tonight, you will be on the Super Wheel next week. And that is our show for tonight. Thank you so much for coming. On behalf of Ryan Clements, Kyle Hinton, myself, Seth Robichaux, my husband, Todd Fisher, we just appreciate you coming to watch and spend Saturday night with us. Thank you very, very much. And we'll see you next week. And I will see you next Friday on Friday night when I do Cat Solo Live on my Facebook page. So have a great one, everybody. We love you.
When you're
so
asleep.
Much. Not only when they're asleep, all the time. Good night, everybody.
Tammy's in love. Does my lover feel what I feel when he comes near? My heart beats so joyfully. You'd think that he could hear